Hello and welcome to Morning Brew on Labour Social. I'm Graham Hughes. It is, what day is it today? It's Wednesday. Wednesday the 13th of December 2023. We've got a few weeks left of the, we've got a few weeks left, haven't we, of the year. Oh my God, of the year. This is the end. It is indeed. So, Tories last night had a big vote for the second reading of their ridiculous, insane, not going to work Rwanda bill, which isn't going to work. And yet they've spent £290 million of our money on it, growing the economy of Rwanda by 3.2%. And they say they're going to override international law, notwithstanding. They use this word, notwithstanding. It means they can do what they like, notwithstanding. Yeah, brilliant. So that's going to go nowhere and cost us a lot of money and have a lot of Tories in a tis. So at some point, it will have to go back to the House of Commons for a third reading. I can't see it getting through at that point because whatever they come up with is not going to pacify the rebels, the extremists on the right, like Cruella Braveman, who's insane, and that horrible little man, Robert Degenevic, Robert Generic. Wasn't he the guy who sat next to Richard Desmond, the then owner of the Express newspaper? He was a porn peddler in the 1980s. I think he used to own things like Razzle and Reader's Wives and classy publications like that. Anyway, he was planning to do a big building thing in Tower Hamlets in London. And basically, if you're going to do a big building thing, you've got to pay a lot of money, to do the big building thing. And Robert Generic said to him, hey, don't worry about it. I'll rush through your planning application so you don't have to pay that big money. So he evaded millions of pounds that he would have otherwise had to pay in tax. Robert Generic, thanks, guy. Thanks, mate. Thanks, guy. That was good of you. Yeah, good job. Anyway, they abstained in the vote last night. They abstained. 44 was the number that the bill went through with, and it included people voting for it, like Peter Bone, who's currently facing a recall petition for indecent exposure. He voted for it. Oh, and Matt Hancock. These people are not in the Tory party anymore. Don't have the Tory whip. But you see that evil little fuckers? So, sorry for swearing this early in the morning. But yes, Matt Hancock. I'm a celebrity. Get me out of here. SAS, Matt Hancock. His only crime was to fall in love. Which sounds like a line from The Simpsons. It really does. Like, oh my God, you murdered all these people. No, not really. My only crime was to fall in love. It's like something that like Sideshow Bob would say. It's like a cartoon character would say that line. Like attempted murder. Is that even a crime? Do they give Nobel Prizes for attempted chemistry? I don't think so. Yeah, he voted for it. Matt Hancock voted for the Rwanda bill last night for no reason other than he's the worst. He's a see you next Tuesday. Anyway, so he only got through by 44 because a lot of Tory MPs, the real wingnuts, they all abstained on it. And I don't think they're going to abstain on the third reading because whatever they come up with, it's not going to be strong enough for the wingnuts on the right. And if it is strong enough for the wingnuts on the right, it's going to be rejected by the moderates on, I don't want to say left of the party, the not far right of the party, the middle right of the party. Yeah, it's going to be just, it's going to be a cluster F. And we all know it. And even if it did get passed as a law, Rwanda have already said if it breaks international law, they're not interested. But they're going to keep the money. Anyway, so big firework results. Hurrah this morning for the COP28 summit, which managed to, mealy-mouthed response to the crisis of the climate changing rapidly. So we're already at 1.5. So forget about that. It's gone. We've done it. Well done, everyone. That's a third of all of the glaciers in the world. Gone forever. Never coming back. A lot of fresh water that feeds, nourishes, gives water, which you need, to a lot of people around the world. But yeah, that's all going. And they brought in a new statement that it has to be agreed by everyone, by 198 countries. Jesus Christ, do you know anyone who could name all those 198 countries? I do. It's me. Anyone who's been to all of them. Anyway, so they were trumpeting it as this big win, but actually they didn't use the word phase out fossil fuels, which is what we needed. After 28 of these, knowing since the 90s that the problem was fossil fuels. The problem is the fossil fuels. The whole problem is the fossil fuels. Because, you're going to get bored of me saying this, we're digging the carbon out the ground, we're putting it on the ground, we're burning it, and then the carbon dioxide from the carbon that we've burnt, that was safely locked away under the ground, goes into the air, goes into the sky, and creates a greenhouse effect, as we know that CO2 does. But what about China? Why aren't China doing something? What about other fossil fuels? What about hydrogen? What about... There's no whataboutery to be done here. We need to stop using fossil fuels. That's it. End of. And then you've got think tanks. Is it Civitas, that think tank? It's mysteriously funded by the fossil fuel companies, saying it's going to cost £4.5 trillion to transition away from fossil fuels. Oh, how did you come up with that figure? Pardon me. How did you come up with that figure of £4.5 trillion? I would just pulled it out of our ass. That's actually 10,000 times more that in their cost assessment. It was actually for each wind turbine. They put a price that was actually 10,000 times more than it would actually cost in, reality. But that's one of the reasons why our government, our shite-hawk government, who has given hundreds of new drilling licenses for gas and oil in the North Sea, that's one of the reasons why they're dialed back on their commitments to net zero. They're dialed back on their commitments to electric cars. It was going to be 2030, a Brexit benefit. Finally, we can do the whole let's ban the sale of electric cars 5 years earlier than the rest of the EU. And then he's gone, oh no, we'll just keep it in line with the EU. Good job we left, eh? Otherwise we'd have money. And a decent economy and perhaps even a government that knew what it was doing. Anyway, moving swiftly on. You should have a rule, shouldn't we? If you're a bit Brexity, let's just keep you away from politics for the next 50 years. Can we do that? Since, was it 99% of young people aren't going to vote for the Conservatives in the upcoming election. Devastation. Andre Braga, who was in Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and absolutely freaking hilarious in it. He's passed away at the age of 61. And Rupert Murdoch is now in his 90s. Rupert Murdoch is still alive. Kissinger lived till 100. Robert Mugabe got to about, 94, 95? Idi Amin died an old man in his bed in his mansion, his palace in Saudi Arabia. Pol Pot died of old age. It's not great, is it? Anyway, watched the Concorde documentary last night. We spent a ridiculous amount of money on engineering rather than unadulterated hate. That's from Nick and Diff. Yes. And it would have been a success had the Americans not spat the dummy out the crowd about the fact they just couldn't suss out how to do it. Burying said to the American government, I tell you what, why don't we make some kind of like AstroTurf campaign? That's a grassroots campaign that's actually made by a big corporation, saying that this plane is too loud and we don't want it flying over our country. This is a country that routinely has jets flying over it because, the American Air Force is the biggest air force in the world and jets fly. And you know what? It's only a second and it's kind of cool when you're walking through the valleys of Wales and you see a jet fighter going overhead. And then you hear it. Hey! It's kind of exciting. But, they didn't want it. It's too noisy. I'm sure if they made it, it wouldn't be noisy enough. Because these are the people who also like noise. They're the ones who like the boom boom machines that make loads of noise. They like to go to monster truck kind of like things. There was a lot of people in like Florida complaining about it. It's like, well, What's your problem, Florida? You're like this little penis that hangs off the edge of America. Like, there's not going to be too many planes going over you, I don't think. But yeah, so the Concorde could only go supersonic over the water, not over the land. Yeah, which, come on, let's say there's kind of a good argument for it. Maybe it'll smash some windows on the way. But I'm pretty sure that if America had come up with the technology that allowed Concorde to take passengers at Mach 2, they wouldn't have been too bothered about how much noise it made. Anyway, all I want for Christmas is a general election. I'm with you, 318IS, which is a cool name. You could be a robot. And then we've got Colin Baker saying, I don't think the Tories will assign their votes to marginals. That wouldn't be fair, would it? Gary says, it's a good way to think, plum, but my ticker is giving out. Eric Pickles from Mr. Universe. I've got some random bloody messages this morning. Jimmy Notso was blaming Labour for not supporting the government. Nick Robinson had to remind him this morning that his party had a huge majority. Was that this morning? He was talking to Beth Rigby, wasn't he? I kept forgetting his job title. Not so cleverly. Jimmy Dimley. Why were you supporting us? Jesus Christ. They've got a 50-seat majority. Why are they asking Labour for their votes? Why would Labour give them their votes? They are literally called the opposition. It's like fighting a war against someone and saying halfway through, hey lads, give us a hand with this. Oh, what are you doing? Oh, we're putting this big gun together so we can blow you all up. Oh yeah, we'll just pop over across no man's land and help you out with that big fuck off gun. Yeah. My God. If the bill does go through, does that mean inflation will rise again? No. Even if it goes through, it's first of all, it's a drop in the ocean in terms of how many refugees are going to be sent to Rwanda, if any actually are, and it's the only people who are going to be making money out of this are the Rwandan government. I don't think the average Rwandan on the street will actually get anything out of this, but the government will. And then you've got the lawyers. I guess they get paid. Hey. So if you like enriching small dictatorships in the middle of Africa and lawyers, then go for it, guys. Yes, why were the opposition? They had to stand back. We were stated they would cancel the bill, and you shouldn't need to a bill if competent. It's not to back you. It's a question for the ages. It really is, isn't it? Why won't you support me? Not quite true, says Freckle Puny. I love this. I'm being told off. Okay, what have you got to say, Freckle Puny? The Americans had the B-58, the world's first supersonic bomber in the 1950s. I was a big fan of the B-57s. Was it the B-52s? B-51s? I can't remember. They sang Rock Lobster and Love Shack. Boeing and Lockheed came up with plans for an SST. But SSTs were deemed far too expensive. Yeah, I know this. Okay, well, maybe they did have the technology to do it, but they couldn't do it because it was too expensive. A bit like America couldn't make an iPhone. Because if someone worked out that if America made an iPhone, it would cost like $14,000, which they probably do these days. But I mean, like, because of just the amount that it would cost to make it in America rather than China. China. Lots of sarcastic comments from Labour MPs last night saying the same thing. Tories have a majority of 56. Sort out your rebels before blaming the opposition. I feel their despair. Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe today in Prime Minister's Questions, if it's on today, I think it is. Keir Starmer can stand up and say, we were going to vote with the government, but, everyone rebelled. What can you do, eh? Rebels. I hope he tears Sunak a new one today. Concorde could only be built due to the fence and the Brits funding it directly, something the US government was not prepared to do. That's actually true as well, yes. I want the UK's trade treaty negotiators to be taught by Rwandan negotiators. The Rwandans are brilliant when it comes to negotiating. The UK, not so much. Tell you what, why don't you give me loads of money and I'll give you nothing in return? And the Brits are like, yeah, that sounds great. That sounds like a good plan. So we'll do that. Or when we were negotiating with Australia and we said, I'll tell you what, you can have, we will buy off you up to 20,000 tons of beef hormone injected, filled up with steroids filled up with antibiotics. Beef over from Australia. We'll take 20,000 tons off your hands, tariff free. And if it's okay with you, Mr. Australia, sir, we'd like to not be allowed to sell you any beef whatsoever. Not a single brisket, not a tiny steak, not a tiny overcooked steak with ketchup on it. Ugh. Nope. Because that's how good we are at, closing the deal. We had them over a barrel. We had them over a barrel and we got into the barrel. The first female British Concorde pilot began life as a hairdresser. Wow, that is a fascinating story. Someone should make a movie of that. Because it doubled as a means to produce their own fighting craft, which became the Eurofighter. Well, there you go. If anyone needs the reason not to eat beef anymore, that's it. The UK venison is far nicer in any case. Venison, isn't that from deer? Isn't that from? Do you mean veal? I mean, no. Oh, okay. I bet all the Brexiteers are partying because the bills went through. I think there will be another vote in the Commons again. Yes, I think that's how it works. I wonder which of the Tories or their donors have business interests in Rwanda. Oh, yes, they do, don't they? Yes, there are business interests in Rwanda. And there was something about Suella Braverman, or was it Priti Patel? Literally had, a business interest over there. Here's loads of money. I have no question in return. Oh, thank you very much, Veg Pie. It must be Christmas. £5 super chat from Veg Pie. Really, really appreciate that. Might be able to put the heating on at some point today, which should be nice. Talking of Christmas, if anyone wants to get a stylish Labour mug or a copy of the Great Brexit Cookbook with disgusting recipes in, send that to someone that you know who voted for Brexit. And maybe don't tell them who it's from. But it's full of disgusting recipes, real recipes from the Victorian era, including things like kidney omelette, brain cakes, sheep's head pie, and one of my favourites is sparrow stew and roasted seagull. So yeah, if you want to just get a couple of sparrows and eat them, none of that foreign muck. It's all British, good old fashioned British cooking. Anyway, if you buy them a copy of that, if you've got a Secret Santa in work, that would be a really good gift for someone who's voted for Brexit, and maybe someone who regrets voting for Brexit. That would be even funnier. So you can get that from Amazon and from Waterstones. Just type in the Great Brexit Cookbook by Graham Hughes. I will add the link to the description below. I didn't have time this morning. And also a link to Spring where you can get one of these Labour social mugs. And also you can get a mug that says, I voted for Brexit because I'm a mug. It's another thing you can buy someone in your life who voted for Brexit this Christmas. I bought How They Broke Britain for a Daily Mail reader for Christmas. Brilliant. That's James O'Brien's latest book, his third book. It's kind of a book that I would like to have written, but I probably, I don't know. I don't know if I have the full sort of breadth of knowledge about the ins and outs of it all that James O'Brien has. But it's a bit like The God Delusion by Richard Dawkins. I've had that going. I've been saying this for years. But if you already got a publishing deal, it's a lot easier. My max speed near ground level is only about 1.1 Mach due to thick air drag. Max speeds are possible, goes up with altitude, but chokes the engines of the oxygen, though. The engineering quandary, says Hugh. Well, there you go. Isn't it a scramjet, the new ones? That's not even new. It's about bloody 30-year-old technology now. I'm supposed to go super fast. Supersonic planes carrying a handful of very rich people flying at an altitude of 60,000 feet and burning tons of fuel are very bad for the ozone layer and emit tons of CO2. That's a very good point, Roderick. But, it looked cool. No sparrows left. I'm sorry, have they been eaten? What fruit does Rwanda produce? That's where you'll find a Tory. Don't really understand that, but Rwanda produces lots of fruits. Rwanda's a very, very green country. It's a very green and lush country, close to the equator, and it's very hilly. And it's honestly, of all the African countries that I've been to, and I've been to them all, it was probably one of the prettiest. It's got a lot of good things going for it, but at the same time, it's had the same dictator in charge for the last 23 years. He's a nutter. He puts his political opponents in jail. He tortures them. And just a few years ago, they shot dead a bunch of asylum seekers for complaining that there wasn't enough food. Yeah, when people complain about them, when people are starving and like, hey, I'm starving, and get shot dead, it's not a great place to send more asylum seekers, I don't think. But there you go. Planes are worth the emissions, obviously. No, they're not. As the first person to visit every country in the world without flying, I would say no. I've never been on Concorde. I was too young. And I'd rather not fly. Given the choice, I'd always want to take the train. Although it is eye-wateringly expensive. I have a Brexit voting friend, says Nick Indiff, and he thinks we haven't Brexited enough. We'll have a look at the shop, Graham. Also, everyone should read Abolish the Monarchy by Graham Smith. Also a great Christmas gift. Ooh, that's good. Wes says that's why they were banging on about bananas then. It was code all along. I've just tuned in. What happened to the sparrows? I don't know. We were told they've all gone. P.S. The Apollo program costs as much as the GDP of the whole of Africa. Yeah. Well, I mean, the way that this asylum seeker sending refugees to Rwanda policy of the government, of the British government is going. I mean, they're taking an economy that hasn't grown in 16 years. They're taking money from that economy and giving it to another economy so that economy can grow. It's kind of nice in a way. I mean, I find it a bit weird, though, because Rwanda was never part of the British Empire, so it's not really a country that maybe we should be paying reparations to. Maybe the Belgians should be paying reparations to it, maybe, but not necessarily the Brits. Maybe the Belgians first and then the Brits later. But now it's part of the Commonwealth because reasons, along with Mozambique and Gabon, other countries that were never part of the British Empire, didn't have British colonies set up there, but they want to be part of the Commonwealth, which is kind of nice, I guess, in a way. Kind of blows up that idea of the Commonwealth being a remnant of the empire. There are countries that want to join it that weren't ever part of the empire. But at the same time, I really do feel like there were countries that would probably deserve that £290 million of our taxpayers' money more than Rwanda at the moment, or need it more than Rwanda, and countries that we have bit more of a historic connection to, i.e., we probably raped and pillaged and destroyed the place for no good reason other than greed. Huge amounts of greed, which is what the British Empire was based on. So when people go, oh, the British Empire did a lot of good things, just say to them, yeah, it was, greed. As I said last night on Geoscope, when we Brits, first went to India, in the 1600s, when Queen Victoria was, 1500s. No, it was 1600, wasn't it? It was 1600 when Queen Elizabeth I was on the throne. So when we first went to India. And at that time, India was the richest country in the world. The richest country in the world. And when we left in the 1940s, it was one of the poorest. Funny that. Anyway, you don't become a Brexiteer by understanding facts and irony. True. Where said didn't we recently colas with France to collab with France to build ships we confiscated from Russians? I don't know. Putting the environment aside, the engineering achievements between the British and French on the Channel Tunnel and Concorde were amazing. Sadly, something we may not see again anytime soon. Yeah, it's amazing what we can do when we work together with our partners and our friends and our neighbours around Europe. Our continent. And a question that I like to ask Brexit is, what's the best continent in the world? Because they can't say Europe, can they? Because they don't want to be part of it. They'd rather we were. It's like for them, Europe is kind of like this embarrassing drunk relative. Do you know what I mean? That you don't really want to invite to parties and stuff. And that's really bad, isn't it? That attitude of like, I hate my own continent. Why? Oh, because it's full of foreigners. It's full of people who speak different to me. With their funny food that I love to eat, but it's funny food in it. And you're just like, really, this is what you want your life to be. Spending it being horrible to people because they didn't pop out their mum at the correct point of longitude and latitude that you deem acceptable. And it is crazy, isn't it? People in Kent, you get a lot of Brexiteers down in Kent, don't you? They're down in Kent, right in the south, in the corner, right? They live closer to France. They live closer to French people than they live to me up in Durham here in the northeast of the country. I mean, like if I draw a line directly west of here, I'll end up in Scotland because the Scottish border comes diagonally down like that, and they look at me as I'm part of their gang, but those people 30 miles in the other direction, terrible people. Really is quite something. When someone says taxes are too high because we paid less tax when we had an empire, I point out that the wealth of India paid for the empire. To be honest with you, we've always paid about the same amount of tax. Do you know what I mean? Like people, the Tories like to pretend and mess around the edges, but there's so many stealth taxes out there. You always end up paying about 40% of your income in tax. I mean, if you go back to the before the Victorian era, maybe back to when we, the feudal system, it was 10%. Your tithes, wasn't it? It's 10% of your crop you had to give up to the church or the Lord and Manor, whatever. But nowadays it's around 40%. It's around 40% everywhere in the world. But one way or another, whether you're paying for 20% on whatever you buy, or whether you're paying income tax, or whether you're paying tax on your savings, they get the money. They get the money somehow, and then they go and spend it on Rwanda. So that happened. So we've had Rwanda, and we've had the cop out, the COP 28, which they're celebrating on the BBC as if they've done this magnificent, amazing thing. And the reality is that it's too little and too late. We need to be actually taking the bull by its horns. I don't think that the COP system is a particularly good way of doing this. I think that the EU and Britain, we should rejoin the EU, but let's just say the EU and Britain and the US under Biden should work together to make a plan. Stop asking Saudi Arabia what they think about stuff. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's an autocracy. It's a dictatorship. It's a brutal dictatorship in which women are routinely stoned to death for crimes of showing a bit of ankle, or maybe like plucking their eyebrows, or whatever the religious police over there decide is not right. Why are we asking Iran what they think? Iran, again, beautiful country, wonderful people, terrible government, a government that hangs people for being gay. Why are we asking them what they think about this? Let's just not. Let's just lead the world like we did with CFCs. Why can't we do that? Well, because we've got to wait till Nauru agree with us. Oh, bloody sod Nauru. It shouldn't even be a country anyway. It only was because, my God, they found all this bird shit there in the 1980s. Lol, canaries couldn't get through customs. A Spanish laundry woman in court tried to poison Elizabeth I, put arsenic in her dressers. But there you go. In 2012, the EU announced the smallest steps to address tax avoidance, and then the city bankers decided Brexit was their only hope. Says Christopher. You're absolutely right, mate. You are absolutely right. And Bad Bones 777 says, ha ha ha! Don't know what you're referring to, but yes. Thank you. A pedant writes, Elizabeth I died in 1603. Yeah, so 1600 was the year that we started pissing around in India. Okay, so it wasn't the reign of Elizabeth I. As a son of the Windrush generation, when Britain invaded Jamaica, etc., just like India, we were a rich country. The amount of damage the UK has done to build their empire is unreal. Yes, you're absolutely right, Bernard. And this is my point of, like, if we're going to be giving shitloads of money over, almost, over £250 million taxpayers' money to a particular country, I think I'd rather it went to Jamaica, for what we did over there. And when people talk about, the empire did some good things, I said, do you ever meet a Carib? What's a Carib? Well, exactly. Where do you think the Caribbean got its name from? The Caribs and the Arawaks. We killed them all. They don't exist anymore. We wiped them out and then replaced the people who used to live on those islands for thousands of years. We replaced them with people who were forced to go there from West Africa, half of whom died in the passage. Millions of people, the biggest crime ever committed by humanity. And it was all done by Europeans, mostly by Brits. And just because we were the first one to go, maybe this isn't such a great idea, and there were some economic reasons why it wasn't a great idea to indulge in slavery, we got rid of it first. But still, we'd already had hundreds of years of making shitloads of coin out of it. And it's not like we went, oh yeah, that was really bad, we should give some reparations back to the slaves. No, we gave reparations to the slave owners. And then a few decades later, we were like, we're not making enough money out of other countries that we can exploit. And now we've got this thing called quinine. Yay. So basically we can live a bit longer than we otherwise would have done in the tropics. Let's have a scramble for Africa, which happened in the 1880s, in which all the countries in Europe got together and went, let's take every little bit of Africa, apart from Ethiopia, for ourselves and exploit the shit out of it. And although, again, there's the degrees of how exploited these places were, they were all exploited. People died. You know, look at what happened in the Democratic Republic of Congo, which used to be the Belgian Congo under King Leopold. There's a great book called King Leopold's Ghost. I recommend it. It's not really Christmas reading, but yeah, have a read of that. Have a read what happened in the Belgian Congo. And then think about what happened in the Boer War that we had in South Africa, in which the British invented concentration camps, in which thousands of women and children died. Great. Good stuff, guys. The Empire. Great thing. My stepdaughter's history assignment last year, it had a bit about the Empire, and I was reading it, and it said, list the good points of the Empire, and the points that they had given were things like bureaucracy and government, democracy, cricket, and the railways. And I just went, I said, does Japan have railways? She went, yeah. And I said, were they ever part of the British Empire? No. Okay. Right. Okay, moving on. Can someone tell Graham about Genghis Khan killed enough people to cool the planet? Might also want to tell about how many Arab nations enslaved and castrated. How many people? Well, not as many as us. As simple as that. That's and also Genghis Khan was doing it at a time that was 800 years ago. Whereas this is in like just the last 200, 300 years. It's relevant because the buildings that we are currently in exist, the ones that we use every day, our municipal buildings, the wealth of Britain was built on the back of slavery. Whereas, Mongolia, are you daft? Like, are you a bit dim? Like, do you think that Mongolia is like this great, I wouldn't say empire, but you think in Ulaanbaatar they've got loads of money? Everyone's just sitting there, on these amazing state buildings in every town and hamlet and truck stop along the way. It like we have here, where we have these amazing prestige buildings everywhere. And a lot of we're the sixth richest economy in the world, still, despite 13 years of Tory mayhem. I mean, that's quite impressive to think that Genghis Khan has any kind of relevance to slavery, but well done you for making that connection. It must be quite lonely in that head of yours. But yes, and Arabs did bad things as well. And it's again, okay, well that's their beef, isn't it? I'm not an Arab. I'm British. And I know that the wealth of this nation was built on the back of slavery and then colonization. Brutal slavery and brutal colonization. And I could tell you some stories that happened during that era that will make your hair stand on end, but I'm not going to because it's bad enough that, I know these things and they play over in my head, and some of the atrocities that were committed by the British authorities are just absolutely beyond the pale. And if we can do anything about that, i.e. reparations, or at least acknowledge that it was a terrible thing to do, I think that's the least we should do. Oh, actually, no, the least we should do is know that this shit happened, because we don't really teach it in schools very well, because we go, oh yeah, but there were good things about empire, cricket. Anyway, British Empire was started with the East India Company based in London. The blueprint next was gold and diamond to South Africa roads, and that shizzle, says Hugh. Well, it was a private company for many years until Queen Victoria. Anyway, so it's 6 minutes past 10 o'clock, so I'm going to bugger off now. I'll be back at 12. I'll be back at 12 o'clock, noon, midday, for Prime Minister's Questions. Might be the last one of the year. I don't know. Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. But I'm going to be back here for that. And hopefully Starmer will tear Sunak a new one. Yay. Which should be fun. So please join us for the live commentary here on Labour Social. I've been Graham Hughes. You've been amazing. Thank you very much for all the chat. And thanks for the super chats as well. That was really good. Thank you. I like that. Okay, and until next time, I'll say hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye. Oh, and buy my book.